Cameraman.
I'm Father Chris Valka. It's day 5 of World Youth Day. There's a quietness in the cities of Madrid at this point because all of the pilgrims have made their way to Cuatro Vientos Airport, and they're preparing for the Easter Vigil, for the Vigil of the Holy Father. Yes.
Yes. This building, the Love and Life site, it's already there. All the equipment is out, as Father Chris said. Pilgrims have been walking some of them since this morning.
That's right.
Most of them left around 1 in the afternoon for a long, hot walk. And they've been arriving, streaming in Cuatro Vientos. And we're going to be going there very shortly. The vigil will begin in about half an hour. But first we want to recap a little bit about what happened last night after the event.
And the Holy Father has actually had a very full itinerary today, so we'll also be recapping some of his movements throughout the day.
And do you know which saint is known for baptizing over 50,000 people? All that and much more is coming right up, so stay tuned.
Known for baptizing over 50,000 people of all races and ages, meet Saint Francis Xavier, your World Youth Day saint.
This year's Way of the Cross enactment will feature traditional statues taken from all across Spain, and they are traditionally used in Spanish Holy Week celebrations across the country. And so this will be a very, very special enactment as it will reflect the Spanish cultural heritage as well as Spanish piety.
Each stage is like a journey, like a stepping stone in the journey, and for me personally, when I've done Stations of the Cross previously, it's been a unique experience each time. And when it's done in a church, it's a different setting. When it's done outside, it's a different setting. So what's going to happen today is going to probably be very interesting and unique in itself. So I look forward to that as well.
We're really excited to see all the statues because it's very cultural in Spain. And we really just want to see something different because usually it's a reenactment of it, and it's going to be very interesting this year.
And it's always important to watch or experience the Stations of the Cross or the Way of the Cross when you're on a pilgrimage, something like this, where you can experience the struggle and the intense passion that Catholics have all over the world, especially here in Spain right now.
Experiencing like religious things through another culture's eyes opens your own heart to the different aspects of Catholicism and the different aspects of the faith that you maybe wouldn't have noticed. And spiritually, I love the Stations of the Cross because every time I see Jesus fall or I see him suffering, I hear him saying, "I did this for you. I do this for you." And this is what he calls us to do as Christians. He calls us to fall for each other and to love and to sacrifice and to bear our own crosses with him.
Well, I think it's fantastic the way they brought all the statues in, because Spain is itself a very Catholic country. Even in history, it always was one of the strong ones. So I think it adds a lot to it.
I'm really exciting to see what it's going to be because I really like Spanish art. I like to go to the churches everywhere to see how during the centuries the development of that religious expression, and I'm very enthusiastic about that.
Those pilgrims were taken, or we had a moment to visit with those pilgrims before the journey of the cross, the Via Crucis, which we saw in such a moving display last night. It really did capture the imagination, I think, of many of the people. The Spanish government actually said that there were roughly 1.5 million in attendance, according to their numbers.
I found that surprising. Mind you, we weren't there. We heard from people that were there.
Right.
It's incredible to see that many people, not all of them pilgrims, because obviously a lot of local people from Madrid, Spaniards, came. And afterwards, I don't know if you remember, but we were caught on the street with people coming in every other way. I thought they were coming from the Way of the Cross, but they were going in the other direction.
Yeah, and a lot of them were clearly moved by what they saw, because we had many people say thank you to us. I mean, they could see that we were wearing badges, but they didn't know who we were necessarily, and it had a few different conversations. I think you guys had one.
We did. We actually ended up speaking with an older lady who made a point of telling us to thanking us, and she kept saying, "Oh, I'm going to be crying. We're all going to be crying when you leave, when the pilgrims leave, because you're also so healthy." She kept saying, "La juventud sana," healthy youth, good-looking youth, joyful youth, and the Madrid is going to be very, very sad. So that seemed to be very much the sentiment, and it wasn't. I mean, it went on all night.
Yeah, it really did. In fact, myself, I had just gotten to bed. It was roughly about 2 o'clock in the morning, and I started to hear these drums and these horns and these singing. And I have to say, I wasn't entirely happy at the moment. And I thought, okay, there's clearly something going on with, World Youth Day. And sure enough, I read the papers this morning, and there was, I don't know if it was an impromptu Via Crucis, but certainly the brotherhood that we referenced to, that was, each of these passos belonged to the brotherhoods, and they actually took the passos on somewhat of a journey throughout the city. And they were singing, and it was very much this manner and the style of which the Spanish are used to seeing.
Very much. If you watch the images of the actual way of the cross, it was the World Youth Day cross that was moving from station to station. The actual floats, the pasos, and we can see one of them there behind the World Youth Day cross, were stationary.
Right.
But then afterwards, they actually took these. And they're large.
Yeah.
Some of them require 40. I think there was one that required about
220 people to
carry them.
So so they were carrying these things throughout, and the hotel that I'm staying in is right near the Plaza de Cibeles, and so right in the heart of it all. And I heard them pass around the hotel in a couple different times. In fact, we're now seeing images that our own Richard Valenti was able to capture. He actually had gone out, got caught, and so he was able to quickly film some of these passing through. And so this is
very much, this is traditional for Holy Week in Spain. So, the newspapers this morning were saying Holy Week in August.
Right, that's right.
And the fact that, other than Father Chris minding the drums and the
no, and actually, like I said, I knew, and I just said a little prayer. I said, okay, God, this is part of World Youth Day. This is the joyful chaos that is. And so I just offered the prayers up and said, this is clearly doing a good thing. In fact, it did lead. Some of the papers this morning made mention of the fact that there was somewhat of a meeting between some of the pilgrims and the protesters that have been kind of around all week long, and there was a bit of a reconciliation that had taken place between some of these pilgrims and protesters. And one of the papers, I forget which one, had said that the protesters said, look, we have our issues, but they're not with you. They're not with you as a young people. We respect what you're doing here, and so clearly, this Via Crucis and this display of the passion, death, and resurrection of Christ really does have quite a moving effect on this city, as it has in every city in past World Youth Days.
The power of the sacraments and reconciliation.
That's right.
Now, so that ended this morning,
right.
And then there were. The Holy Father has continued with several meetings, as we mentioned in previous days. He's here also on a state visit.
That's right.
So he will be visiting, various dignitaries. Or I know yesterday he met with the royal family. Today he had a mass with seminarians, and we're actually going to get to that. So stay tuned.
His feast day is December the 3rd. He is the Apostle of the Far East, and he is the patron saint of missionaries, navigators, India, China, Japan, Australia, and New Zealand. Meet St. Francis Xavier, your World Youth Day saint. St. Francis Xavier, pray for us.
We're here at the Parque Retiro, where the Festival of Forgiveness has been ongoing throughout the week. And as we know, confession is one of those beautiful sacraments where we really get to experience God's mercy and expose ourselves to more grace. So we decided to speak to some of the pilgrims in line here to see why they think confession is so important.
It's really important to recognize when we sinned, to be able to receive Jesus better. I really think it's an important moment, and I really want to enjoy it the most I can.
Confession is very important. That helps you inside to reflect and to think yourself how you can improve your life and to help to the others to live better, I think.
We need confession to clarify with ourselves before open to others.
Confession is important because we're here at World Youth Day to reflect, and it's just a nice time to sort of be alone and really think about things. we all have our crosses that we bear, so it's just a nice way to sort of lessen the load.
You know, when you have like a lot of sins, you cannot have a real good life. You cannot live in real peace. So I think it's very important just to tell your sins to a priest in order to live in peace.
You know, just as you need to have a wash every day, you need to wash your soul. So if you want to be clean and beautiful inside, then you really need confession.
Did you know that St. Francis Xavier studied with St. Ignatius of Loyola at the University of Paris? St. Francis was living a worldly life and converted when St. Ignatius spoke these words to him from the Gospel. What does it profit a man to gain the whole world and lose his soul? St. Francis Xavier, pray for us.
I know as I've been walking around the halls of the Palacio and up and down the streets, I've had many people who have asked me to hear their confessions or have had questions about sin, and it really, the sacrament of forgiveness is a huge part. And in Madrid, actually, this World Youth Day organizing committee called this the Festival of Forgiveness. And in fact, even the Holy Father participated in this Festival of Forgiveness earlier this morning, hearing the confessions of a few pilgrims himself.
Yeah, that's a new
piece,
addition.
yeah.
I wonder if that's going to become a tradition. I had heard that when they, I guess they had to ask the Holy Father if he would be willing to listen to some confessions, and the Holy Father agreed and asked how many, and I think it was 5 youth or something.
Yeah, just a few.
And the Holy Father said, "Is that it?" So he was quite happy to listen to more confessions.
Right.
But perhaps it's worth noting the setup of this, I guess, a festival of forgiveness. You saw a little bit on the clip with Sheridan earlier. How this confessionals have been set up in the park.
Right, that's right, and it's meant to be kind of like a sail,
Right.
kind of an idea. And again, this idea of a breeze and the wings of forgiveness that we're all experiencing, and the wings of freedom, and that this sets us forth in the right direction. And so there really was a lot of thought that went into that, and it really was impressive as you walk down the main kind of walkway of the park. There were what seemed to be hundreds of these confessionals, and as I walked by one particular day, they were full. There were many people, and like I said, I know I've had several conversations on just people who are trying to understand more about sin and forgiveness and confession, because I think for a lot of young people this is a very confusing type of thing, and that's one of the reasons why we see so much catechesis that's done during these World Youth Days, so that there's a better understanding of why these sacraments are so important.
Right.
And I think the youth certainly go home with a better understanding.
But at the same time, as we mentioned last night about the young people being interested in this devotion of the Stations of the Cross, I mean, to think that young people don't want to go to confession, I mean, you have to come to a World Youth Day to see that young people are very much interested in the sacrament of reconciliation and all the sacraments. But that's a difficult one for a lot of people. But
right. I don't think my experience is working in a university is actually young people don't have this. It's actually they're frustrated because it isn't offered more than it is, or they, it often is it's offered on a Saturday afternoon between this hour and this hour, and they have to work and they have a hard time. So it's one of the things that I'm always challenged with is how do we make that sacrament more available to the young people, and certainly here at Madrid, this is a big part of every World Youth Day is this
it
has been named here.
Yes, absolutely. Now the Holy Father also had a chance this morning to do something that I'm pretty sure that he began in Cologne. It was an important thing for him to meet with seminarians.
Right.
And not just a meeting, but to celebrate a Mass. And that took place earlier today at the
Cathedral of Santa Maria la Real de la Almudena,
who is the patroness of Madrid.
That's right. And he compared that cathedral, and we're seeing some of those images now. He compared that cathedral to a great upper room, and challenging them to be saints, so as not to create a contradiction between the sign that they are and the reality that they wish to signify. He asked the seminarians to actually imitate Christ in perfect charity, so that they do not shun the excluded and the sinners, and to be close to the poor and the sick with great generosity. He also told them not to be intimidated by the surroundings that would exclude God, And so there were a lot of different elements to this gathering.
Yeah, no, and again, a common theme throughout the week, which is don't just kind of practice your faith in private.
That's right.
Shelter yourself inside a church. Go out in service.
Be a public witness. Make sure that you're visible. Make sure that you're not a contradiction to each other. He also told the seminarians that these years of preparation should be years of interior silence, of unceasing prayer, of constant study, and of gradual insertion into pastoral activity and the structures of the church.
Yeah.
So certainly we and again, these images, it's a great opportunity for seminarians from across the world to be with each other, to realize the fraternity that they have.
It's true. It's true.
In their formation, not just with their own peers in their own country, but really as part of a universal church.
Yeah, and you don't get seminarians don't get a chance to meet necessarily seminarians, especially diocesan ones, from other countries, except at World Youth Day, which we see that with lay movements and other groups, but in particular, I mean, seminarians who have that important thing in common, I guess.
That's right, yeah, their preparation for priesthood and really being the future leaders of the church. If this is a World Youth Day that is preparing the youth of the world, these are in fact the youth that will be guiding. And we've just been joined here with a good friend.
Yes.
Selena Hashem, welcome to our set.
Thank you.
Selena and I worked together on the Sydney World Youth Day. And Selena, this is how many World Youth Days for you?
I think this is my 6th World Youth Day.
Sixth World Youth Day. And so, yeah.
She's a veteran.
A veteran.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you work in the Archdiocese of Sydney in the communications office, but your role here is in a slightly different capacity, correct?
I do work in communications with the Archdiocese of Sydney. However, I am here in the capacity of the chair of the National Bishops' Conference World Youth Day Committee to bring our delegation of 4,000 young Australians to Madrid. So
you're responsible for all the 4,000 Australians that were screaming in here on Tuesday morning.
That's right. They're very lively and they're very excited to be here, which is great.
No, it's nice to see. I mean, to feel that World Youth Day was so important for them 3 years ago, and that they've again taken that message to continue, go. And they've continued.
That's right. They're very keen to be here and carry on what they experienced in Sydney.
Right.
You mentioned that. So this is your 6th. So your first one was Paris. 2000. How has you've seen not so much the development? In some cases, there's development, but changes or differences. What have been your impressions of this World Youth Day?
This has been a huge World Youth Day, a wonderful one. I think what we're seeing is a generation of young people who are journeying with the World Youth Days and walking the pilgrimage, which the World Youth Days are, and encountering along the way other young pilgrims and, of course, ultimately Christ himself. So this has been great. Every World Youth Day is different. It takes on the life of the host country and the people. The welcome here has certainly been overwhelming. The challenges have been different.
Yes.
But we take that in our stride. Each World Youth Day has its own gift and its own particular difficulties. But this is great, and we're culminating really on this weekend. It's been a huge week, but the vigil and the mass is what everyone's been saving their energy for.
Yes.
Right.
I know we're running out of energy, but it's like you're conserving your energy now. I've just been told that the Holy Father, in his, because he's still having different meetings, and he's actually as we speak, at a meeting at a local hospital, the Instituto San Jose, which is a hospital for patients with mental illnesses. But this gathering in particular is for people who suffer from mental illnesses, but also who have various disabilities. And we are seeing some images. This is live of the Holy Father arriving at the Instituto San Jose.
Yeah, and this is actually en route to Cuatro Vientos. I mean, this is from here he will go on to Cuatro Vientos to gather with many of the pilgrims who have been, as we said earlier, gathering for quite some time. So yes, I mean, he's making his way to all of them. But certainly this has been an important stop and one that he had expressed, a great desire to do.
And again, I'm not, maybe Selena can correct us, but I don't know if he's done this in previous World Youth Days, made a point of meeting with people who are sick.
In Sydney, he did meet with a group of disadvantaged young people,
Right.
and that did include some who had mental illness and particular challenges. So this certainly, visiting a hospital is a recent reality, but I think those special visits that he does make as part of a World Youth Day communicate that he's here to engage with the city, with the people, with the young people, but also those that are a little bit marginalised and
Yes.
maybe may not be able to participate in the event.
And again, the same theme. We don't live our World Youth Day just for ourselves.
Right.
Yeah.
We go out. Apparently, that it looked like he was actually leaving, that he had done the meeting. So, because we're looking at the clock and wondering, the vigil is supposed to start very shortly. Now, it is a very short distance, literally
one to
around
the
the
other.
corner into the Cuatro Vientos Air Base. So we will be going to those images very soon. Any word on what we are to expect tonight, Father Chris?
The vigil, and Selena, you can certainly add into this, because I think every vigil carries with it a component or similar components. This is, and vigils can mean a lot of different things, and in this case, there's a period of adoration that takes place during this particular vigil, and so we will certainly see that the Holy Father will address the youth, in a brief capacity. And really, it's the idea, and we saw this from the very beginning in the opening mass that Cardinal Rocco had talked about, this being present to the silence, and making sure that we don't forget these times, and in fact, one of the things that we will see is intense moments of silence where the Holy Father literally asks for everybody to quiet down. And I actually remember that very distinctly in Sydney, not at the vigil necessarily, but at the opening mass. It was a long period of silence.
Yes, and you don't expect a million
crowd
people.
of a million people, or in that case, 500,000 people,
That's
to
right.
be
silent.
You could have heard a pin drop. And so these moments of silence and these moments of preparing for the great mystery that we celebrate in the Mass, will certainly be a part of this evening.
Yeah,
So
now the vigil will be beginning very shortly. The Holy Father is en route, so we're going to go there very, very soon, so don't go anywhere.
Imitate St. Francis Xavier and allow God to use you to preach the gospel and serve humanity wherever He wants. St. Francis Xavier, pray for us.
Now, maybe that's another question for Selena in terms of the differences between various vigils, because I know in Toronto we introduced the evening prayer. It was evening prayer, but in Rome in 2000 it was very much more of it was a
party.
I was going to say a celebration, but a party. Yeah, fireworks and. But then in Sydney, in Cologne, it was adoration. Something which was also carried over to Sydney.
My feeling is that the vigil is becoming more and more a moment of encounter and prayer, and that moment when the Holy Father meets with the young people and they pray together, and I think it is a very solemn moment and quite prayerful and quite beautiful. I liked in the guidebooks that were in each of the pilgrims' backpacks, there was a little introduction about tonight, and it said, you've been walking the streets of Madrid, you've been with your pilgrim groups, but now tonight you will come together and you will be one community with the Holy Father, with God, and this moment is very sacred.
Yeah, interesting, and again, the idea that 1 million young people can actually experience that communal quiet is something that you wouldn't expect. And again, you probably have to be there to believe it, but we've experienced it. We're seeing some images now. The Holy Father is approaching the site of the vigil, and we see the crowds
There
there.
you see the
That's
crowds.
a lot of people.
Wow.